All right. I am so excited today to be here with my colleague Christine Gilchrist and really talking more about meditation and imagery and her work in this field and some of the juicy stuff that she has coming up. So, if you're going to want to know how you can really keep living and thriving in this environment, you're going to want to hear more about what Christine is up to.
Welcome to the Calm Collective Conversations, where we explore hypnosis, nurse-led coaching, and the mind-body connection in everyday practice. I'm Christy Cowgill, nurse anesthetist, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, and board-certified hypnotherapist. If you've ever wondered what's really driving behavior, what creates the conditions for self-healing, or how lasting change actually happens, you're in the right place. Let's get going.
Christine, all right, for those meeting you for the first time, um, we could always go into their introductions, but I really want to know what feels most alive in your work right now so we could get right into the juicy stuff.
Sure. Thanks very much for this conversation time today. I think what feels most juicy for me in my work and very relevant for society right now is helping people cultivate peace within themselves. So connecting with their inner wisdom and being able to get a sense of peace that's theirs and that they can access whenever they need to.
I love that because I know a little bit about you and a lot of juiciness around embodiment and feminine wisdom and cyclical kind of living. But I'm curious, when you look back, were there key moments that brought you specifically onto this path?
Yeah, the what stands out as the beginning of this journey, I guess, when I was in graduate school, I had a mentor, Aurora Ocampo, and she was a holistic nurse and she was my preceptor in my graduate program. You know, you're doing all those hours. And I was interested in the work she was doing. And there was a few different programs. She said, that's what you need. Like, you want to do what I'm doing? These are the ones. And one of the programs was clinical meditation and imagery taught by Bonnie and Richard Schaub through Huntington Meditation and Imagery Center.
Mhm.
And that really set me on this path, a specific path, including then nurse coaching, including then hypnosis. So, yeah, I think that stands out as a moment that really, uh, really made this journey mine or my path.
Yeah. Um, so was there a turning point where you realized in your personal life, so outside of like academic rigor and pursuit of like more knowledge, did you have a moment where you realized like I can't keep living the way I've been living?
Think so, only because the academic stuff is still, I guess, a balance of my personality, right? Like that rigor and the testing it and research. Like those two things kind of for me are side by side. So I'm more Venn diagrammy than turn around in terms of my approach. I think the quirky part of nursing, the stories, the different approaches have been of interest to me from the jump.
Yeah, and it's part of your kind of natural rhythm,
Hmm.
right?
I think I'm just curious, honestly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that's why the sort of like outlier, different approaches and research like fit together for me. Yeah, just always curious.
I'm curious if you could share with me, like what that might look like in your actual life.
In terms of healing approaches
Yeah, well,
or
just like the natural rhythm, like
life,
how do you embody that, right? I
how
mean,
do I
yeah,
live?
we can dig into the research and be
Sure.
curious, and then what are the things that you pull out from the research that you have
Hmm.
explored personally that help you make meaning of life?
Hmm. That's a good question. So I definitely think in terms of the day to day, right, the habits that make us feel connected, grounded. Meditation has definitely, on a personal level, become a practice that does bring me that grounding, and that is very important to me. And the habit work overall, I think, with personally and professionally, like with coaching too, of like what can we build into our schedule so that it's not that it takes less effort. I think that's always a thing, the idea of reducing the friction, right? So the idea of even years ago, when I started running, I remember like putting the clothes out the night before, because if I was tired and just frankly put them on, there was less like the chatter of like, oh, but like to get out of it or something. So I think those kinds of habits are helpful and align with the work that I'm interested in. So yeah, I think that's how it comes out, as being aware of the habit stuff, and also I think it's maybe a personal perspective of like different things work for different people. So some of it is try it and write different approaches. I think you kind of need to try them in your life, because what works for one person, the rhythm of their life, the time of their life, maybe even in terms of where they are with their personal and professional obligations, it's different for different people. So I think that actually resonates of, I'm not a prescriber. And I think that was important to me, this idea of kind of being open to talking with someone, listening. Like, I think that's always been something I've been interested in, hearing what works for them rather than sort of um, giving one strict regimen for like, this is what's going to work. So it's a different approach. And I think most clinicians, it's not to say that prescribers only behave that way, but I think it's important. It's always been important to me to kind of see the bigger picture and to hear what's working and to work with someone as they try different things that work for them.
Yeah. I love that about kind of that natural curiosity and also the ability for you to kind of look at what is what does the research say? Like what are some of
Mhm.
the opportunities here? Because you're so inclined to dig into all of the tools, as you will, right? All of the opportunities out there to explore different
Mm.
different ways to build those habits, different ways to really thrive in life. And you do that as, an educator, as a nurse coach, and as a human, right?
Mhm.
You have that capacity for yourself. You've built kind of a signature program based on some of the learnings that you've done. Do you want to explore and tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, Bonnie and Richard Schaub are teachers of mine. They're still teachers. I've studied with them since 2010. And they have authored several books, but one of the books is called Dante's Path. And so about a year ago, a friend and I were talking about it. It had been a while since we read it. The book, I believe, came out around that time, 2010. So I know for a fact I've read it, but around last year, I reread it, and, seeing my underlying pieces, it was sort of like just hitting me at a different stage of life. Being 20 years later, to revisit the book, even though the words are the same, that you're in a different part, right? Like that you're not the same person. So that quote about, the a man can't step into the same river twice because it's not the same river and he's not the same man. So as you have your
Mhm.
perspective that shifts as you get older and where you're at, revisiting that book was impressive to me. Also, the book contains scripts for meditations. So when you're reading the book, it'll say, sit comfortably, close your eyes, for 2 minutes, repeat this phrase. And so, everybody is different, but for me, it's kind of tricky to do that, like to keep track, right? When you get into meditation, sometimes like the time is
Mhm.
distorted, right? It doesn't feel the same as it does if we're consciously thinking to just be in that relaxed space. So with the course that I ended up developing includes audio recordings of some of those practices, so people can kind of just read through the book, do the practices, but if they want to sit and do the practices, just listening to a recording, being guided. And then also there's some practices in there, like listening to different music. So they have a playlist. And so the course includes the access to the different songs, and an interview that I did with them, and also a workbook. So pretty much the book is really profound. I've found it really profound, and other people who have read it have shared like it's a really I guess one of those things like kind of I'm describing, earlier about rereading it years later, but you see like a movie sometimes and there's like different layers to it. So there's like the obvious joke, but then there's other deeper parts of it. That book, I guess, in terms of wisdom, I find has a lot, and having reread it several times now, has a lot of wisdom in it. So it's an opportunity, I guess, to sort of slow it down. I created a workbook to go with it so people can kind of reflect after the different chapters, and spoke with both of them, so that has their you know uh, approval that I'm not copying their work or something. It's kind of just bringing it, as it's described, bringing it to life, giving it different dimensions than the written word itself.
Yeah, so you created this course and it's journeying with this book, Dante's
Mhm.
Path. And I love that you've created it so that it really does become something that the participants in that group can learn from each other,
Mhm.
by sharing their experiences, but also there's opportunities to explore it and really embody it, whether you're going to listen to a meditation and take those words in and have personal meaning for it, reflect on the workbook and some other prompts outside of the words. And you're right, like everyone arrives with their own personal story, where they are right now, what they're working on. So the meaning of the book is different for
Mhm.
everyone. So I love that you have taken some stuff from your mentor and some stuff that you've lived, your own lived experience, and created this opportunity for people to be led by your tenderness and by your compassion and by your wisdom to build that container. What can people expect to shift, or how are they going to feel differently or live differently
Mhm.
having gone through your course? What does that look like?
Yeah. So the classes we're mentioning it is called Journeying Together Along Dante's Path. So it involves reading the book. And I think being in community, and we were talking about something earlier before the recording, being in community sometimes can help us to hold a mirror up, right? So that I'm working on whatever I'm working on. But if you and I have a discussion about something that we just read, maybe your perspective is slightly different, or there's something you say. So I think it adds, again, a richness, a dimension to the experience of reading it together. And then the people who have taken the class, it's different, I suppose. One of the participants mentioned that there's different spiritual touchstones for her that she felt drawn to reconnect with. So I think for some people it's a spiritual piece of connecting with that side of things. And I think for others, again, the meaning, purpose. So depending how you define those things, but getting some clarity on that, I think that by investing that time and resource in oneself, that alone is a decision, right? Like that you're taking this time, you're doing a deep dive into whatever is going on for you. So I think the experience would vary, but I think ultimately I would describe people that are interested in this type of work often as seekers. They're looking for something, right? So they're successful professionals, but there's a longing maybe for like, is this it? Or what else is there? Or there's like something there. So often really like high achieving people, right? Or like feeling we're supposed to be doing all these things, and sometimes there's still like that itch of like, is this it though? Or just societally, like, right, you get praise for certain things, and then there's this aspect, maybe we get sick or we get to a certain age and we realize like, what is it that we want out of life? So I think that for people it would look different, but I would say that's what people are taking the time to do, is do a dive for themselves of what does that look like.
I love that. As you were speaking to that, like I'm called to this imagery of like our lives are kind of we're on a trajectory, on a path, if you will, right? Um, and maybe we're getting ready to cross that river. The metaphorical, we're not the same person arriving at the same river because the river changes and we change. So we're on a path, And maybe we're on there for a while. Maybe it's a path where we've been doing the same vocation or eating the same foods or um, moving our body in the same way. And we're just like, is there something beyond this, right? So it can be really personalized too. It could be something very specific, like, can I move my body in a different way? Or it could be something far more spiritual, like you said, like, what is the next step? What is my purpose? And kind of drilling into that. So kind of peeling away those different onion layers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely describe it as the path part, right, of like the journey together. So there's weekly sessions where we meet and people can share what they want to. So there's again a workbook, there's a lot of reflection being done privately. So people can, choose to share what they want to share with others. But that idea of going inward for the answer. So it's kind of not about, right, like you read this book and you follow these rules and you get this result. It really is a question, like you said, of going inward. And I think for many people of really getting in touch with that again, that there's the day-to-day life, right? We have our tasks and other things, but to actually sit and think about what is it you hope for? I mean, that's even a big question, right? Of like we're going about our lives, like what is it you hope for inner wisdom, reflecting on a time of meaning when you felt purpose in your life. So I think it can be a refresher, reconnect to the past as well as kind of plan for what makes sense going forward.
Yeah. I love that. I'm curious to know a little bit more about you personally. So,
Sure.
you, as you're revisiting this work, you did it 20 years ago, it's been brought
Mhm.
up in the recent past, and you've actually taken the opportunity to kind of build a curriculum around it, a program around it. So, where are you as you're crossing this next river or the intersection in your life? What are you currently exploring or becoming curious about in your own journey?
Hmm. I think I've created for me a new path in terms of this aspect, right? So we're both nurses and hypnotists, and I think that this course, even for me as a personal, to create something that doesn't exist, and to be able to do that has brought me back to those feelings of satisfaction of being in flow, to find images and different aspects that I've gathered for that. I think, and to be blunt, like also the when it's hey, people haven't signed up yet, or whatever aspect that kind of twinges up, to have to really go deep to trust that, right? So if it's this inner wisdom and trusting oneself and really being able to do that, I think it's, if anything, just deepened my trust in that process of really living one's purpose, that it's more fulfilling. So I think for me, yeah, it just underscored it. I don't know. Yeah, a deepening of the journey, I would say, at this stage of my life.
Yeah, I love that. I was told by a mentor at one point, when you offer something that's from your heart, like you're just like, I am called to share this with others. And you do, there's always a fear of like the rejection or nobody's gonna come, or, we're all humans. So we have that. And the universe does bring people together. Like
Mhm.
as you call people in and, hey, I have this thing to share, you'll share it, and you're absolutely right. You'll learn more about yourself
Mhm.
oftentimes than maybe the participants will learn about themselves, right? So as we explore that opportunity that some nurses have stepped into, like you and I being like both maybe the employee model, like I'm an
Mhm.
employee here, and pushing some of the boundaries with our skill set in the entrepreneurial space. It can feel very dissonant. They're very, very different skill sets.
Mhm.
And fear does creep up, or do I got this? But yet, if you were in the container where you're very familiar, you would never second guess yourself, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it is a different that's a shift, I'd say that's
Yeah.
not been part of my past. So that aspect of it. And by the same point, to say that in putting it out there, both from to hear, from my teachers, the authors of the book, from people who have seen it, like such positive feedback. I think it's also that thing of, if there's a pull, as you said, if you kind of just know you're supposed to be doing something, I think it's really validating, even for people. When I've talked about the class, like the interest and excitement, I would say that also like certainly balances out those moments. And totally, there are fear, and that is like, it's superhuman, right? Like, hey, what's going to happen or something. And that's a big part of this work too, is that fear is there, right? Like, so it's okay to acknowledge it, because it's trying to protect us socially, right? Of like,
Yeah.
happens if nobody like yeah, that's just the stuff that we deal with. And certainly in teaching, right, that to teach a concept, as you're a teacher, and having to, you really do have to go back and really understand it to be able to teach it. So I think there's that level, and then there's the sort of embodying level of, right, and then when it's pushes even further, it's
Yeah.
the lessons that we all have of like, it's, you that challenge is met, and there's going to be different aspects of the challenge. So yeah, that's I guess where I'm at with it, is just trusting the process. But yes, it's challenged that, it's deepened that actual going to practice, and continuing on that journey.
Well, if there's one thing that I know about this particular podcast, it really does highlight that as nurses, like we don't have to be defined by somebody else's definition of what nurses do, right? And I know a lot of people, maybe even listening, like are still confused. Like, what is a nurse coach? Are they a coach only for nurses? And no, it's a coaching philosophy that comes with a background of being a nurse, right? And there's a lot of opportunity here for if you're a nurse who's listening and wants to explore more about what other avenues, what other paths can you take in your nursing journey to still sit alongside people in their darkness while you see their light, or work in the spiritual realm, or see the whole person. There's so many opportunities, and the only thing standing in between you and that opportunity sometimes is that fear. So naming
Mhm.
it, like you said, and
Yeah.
being there. And I'm just so excited that you I have created this. I know that the people who arrive there are going to have that compassionate, thoughtful Christine being in that circle with them, right? Being shoulder to shoulder, starting to peel some more layers back to really expose that deeper meaning for them. And what a beautiful gift that is, right? And I love that you're using a book and your own experience with the authors and your mentors to share that, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be so
Yeah.
wonderful. So we'll make sure to link those links in at the bottom here in the show notes. And again, like Christine and I are both members of the Calm Collective care team, and we are nurses who, most of us have a nurse coaching credential.
Mhm.
All of us have a hypnotherapy credential, and we just love to explore all things that are all mind and body. So thank you, Christine, for this introduction to Dante's path, and I think it's going to be a really great journey.
Thanks, Christy.
If you're curious about hypnosis, nurse-led coaching, or exploring the Calm Collective Care team or our audio library, just visit our website at www.calmcollectivecare.com. That's Calm Collective Care, all one word. We offer individual sessions, group sessions, and our growing library of guided experiences. If this conversation sparks something for you, share it with a friend or another nurse who might benefit.